30 million years. That is how long the North American continent sits empty. A sweeping graveyard of long-dead giants. An ecological void stretching across the landmass, silent and waiting. And then, the cracked, sun-bleached floor of the New Mexico desert vibrates. It is a rhythmic, mechanical pulse. Dust does not merely rise from the earth. It dances in geometric patterns. The ambient temperature drops as a shadow the size of a storm cloud slowly eclipses the sun. Something impossible is walking back into the light. You were taught that the long-necked titans of the ancient world were peaceful. You assumed they were soft-skinned grazers, gentle monoliths that quietly faded away early in the timeline of the dinosaurs. A failed experiment of the Jurassic period. This is a fabrication. The final hours of the Cretaceous period do not belong to the Tyrannosaurus. The apex predator of the continent is outclassed by 800%. Outclassed in raw mass. Outclassed in biological weaponry. For 30 million years, the sauropods were completely erased from the North American fossil record. A total biological hiatus. Yet from this absolute absence, a ghost lineage returns. A creature that swallows smooth river rocks, gastroliths, just to grind the vast, terrifying quantities of fuel required to keep its heart beating. It does not just survive its reappearance. It dominates. It reclaims the lost continent by abandoning the soft, fragile anatomy of its ancestors. It forges something new. A chassis built for perpetual warfare. Beneath its skin lies a defensive architecture that defies the fundamental limits of flesh and bone. 88 tons. Roughly 8 times the mass of a fully grown Tyrannosaurus rex. It is a scale that breaks the structural integrity of normal terrestrial biology. Gravity is a constant, crushing antagonist, yet this organism weaponizes it. The tail does not drag in the dirt. It hovers, locked in muscular tension. It operates as a kinetic flail. A 15-meter biological whip capable of delivering pure blunt force trauma. It snaps with a localized impact force exceeding 4,000 pounds per square inch. Faster than a .22 caliber bullet leaving the chamber. The tip breaks the sound barrier. It shatters theropod bone into jagged shrapnel on contact. The torso is an armored bunker. A massive, robust ribcage housing organs the size of compact cars. The exterior flesh is reinforced by osteoderms, subdermal ballistic plating. Bony scuts grow directly within the dermis layer. An industrial shield wall designed to shatter the teeth of any predator foolish enough to attempt a lateral strike. Look at the jaws. The teeth are not designed for chewing. They are industrial stripping rods. Rod-shaped silicate strippers that operate with mechanical precision, deforesting the landscape branch by branch. But sheer mass and ballistic plating are useless without a sensory system designed to command them. High above the ground, the organism surveys the hostile terrain. This is not the blank stare of a grazing animal. It is panoramic, high-ground surveillance. The visual cortex detects the minute heat shimmer of a threat 5 miles away across the semi-arid plains. It registers the thermal distortion. It calculates the distance. It speaks, but not in a register your ears can process. It utilizes infrasonic communication. A low-frequency sonar pulsing continuously through the heavy atmosphere. An AWACS radar system cast in muscle and vocal cords. The sound waves travel through the solid earth far faster than they travel through the air. Imagine the marrow inside the femur of a distant predator. Dark. Sealed within a cylinder of calcium. Long before the colossal shadow appears on the horizon, the marrow begins to vibrate. A violent, microscopic tremor echoing the footfalls of a moving mountain. The air remains entirely silent. But the bones of every animal in a 10-mile radius know the Titan is coming. To support this impossible architecture, the internal machinery must perform miracles of bioengineering. Strip away the armored hide. Look directly at the cervical vertebrae. The neck bones are not solid blocks of calcium. They are structured with pleuroseals, a honeycomb lattice of pneumatic air sacs carved deep into the skeleton. Translucent bone-white caverns cast against deep cyan shadows in the X-ray. This internal geometry reduces the physical weight of the neck by 60%. Yet it maintains the tensile strength of industrial steel crane cables. If the bones were solid, the sheer weight of the skull would snap the spinal column in half. Move deeper into the visceral cavity. The stomach is a chemical forge. Dark ochre and wet gray membranes pulse violently with acidic, neon green fluid. Inside this cavernous organ, the gastroliths turn. Internal tectonic millstones. They churn without a single pause. Smooth, heavy river stones grinding fibrous, toxic plant matter into high-octane biological fuel. This precise biomechanical engineering is how it solved the 30-million-year erasure. Alamosaurus did not evolve from the failed, fragile giants of the North American Jurassic. It is an invader. A migratory reinvasion force moving north from the southern continents. It survived the impossible crossing by upgrading its own skeletal limits. It anchors its massive chassis with exactly 35 caudal vertebrae. A highly specific structural signature. The exact mathematical number of joints required to distribute 88 tons of weight across a bipedal rearing stance. The environment it conquers is not a sanctuary. The geography of the late Cretaceous is a suffocating pressure cooker. The western interior seaway serves as the ultimate antagonist. A massive, encroaching saltwater divide that previously strangled the landmass. It was this creeping, hostile ocean that forced the 30-million-year exile. It drowned the ancient plains. It split the continent in two. It starved the predecessors. As the waters finally recede, they leave behind the Ojo Alamo Formation. A hostile, semi-arid expanse devoid of mercy. Atmospheric oxygen hovers near 21%, thick and dense. The air traps an oppressive, baking heat. The constant grit of a Mesozoic dust storm scrapes relentlessly against the ballistic plating. With every single step, the earth compresses. 88 tons of hygrostatic pressure crush the soil into stone. The footprint instantly alters the microgeography of the landscape, creating craters that will soon fill with rainwater and sustain smaller lifeforms. The sky above this moving fortress is patrolled by aerodynamic monsters. Quetzalcoatlus. Giant flying pterosaurs boasting 35-foot wingspans. Yet beside the armored titan, they look like insects. They do not hunt the Alamosaurus. They land on its spiked back. They act as biological maintenance drones. Cleaner birds using spear-like beaks to pick parasites from the deep crevices of the subdermal plating. A surreal, alien skyline. 80-ton walkers anchoring the earth. 35-foot flyers darkening the sun. This is the Maastrichtian stage. 70 million years ago. Alamosaurus does not simply survive this hostile arena. It dictates the terms of existence. It is so overwhelmingly successful that paleontology defines this entire era as the Alamosaurus fauna. The Titan does not participate in the ecosystem. It becomes the ecosystem. Its localized gravity dictates the flow of ancient rivers. Its feeding clears entire forests, permanently altering the oxygen output of the continent. It achieves biological perfection. An organism so heavily armored, so structurally flawless, that absolutely nothing born of the Earth can dismantle it. Only a 6-mile-wide asteroid falling from the freezing, irradiated void of space possesses the kinetic energy required to stop the machinery. But the true weight of this creature does not lie in its violent extinction. You measure biological success through the narrow lens of human intelligence. You believe evolution is a linear progression. A slow march toward complex brains, toward tool use, toward technology. Toward us. You view sheer physical mass as a primitive brute force tactic. An evolutionary dead end that life eventually outgrew. Alamosaurus shatters this human arrogance. It proves that pure, unadulterated scale is a perfected strategy. Industrial-grade armor and impossible weight distribution are not primitive adaptations. They are an alternate peak of evolutionary mastery. This was not an animal in the human sense. It was a self-sustaining, mobile fortress. A localized defiance of gravity that outclassed the sharpest claws and the strongest jaws the planet could manufacture. Remember the gastroliths. The smooth river stones swallowed by the Titan to grind its fuel. When the sky catches fire 66 million years ago, the ecosystem collapses. The blinding flash of the KPG impact washes over the continent. The 88 tons of armored flesh liquefy. The honeycomb bone structures fracture and disintegrate. The subdermal ballistic plating calcifies, turning to dust under the crushing, indifferent weight of geologic time. But the stones remain. Polished to a mirror finish by the acidic churn of a vanished stomach, they settle into the dark earth. They do not rot. They do not break. They are the immortal clocks of the Titan. The only surviving gears of an extinct machine. They sit buried in the New Mexico desert today, silent witnesses to a reign of biological invincibility that lasted for millions of years. Long after the muscle and the marrow fade, the stones hold the memory of the 88-ton ghost. Biological erasure is a forge. It forces life to retreat into the shadows, to redesign its architecture, and to return in a form that terrifies its predecessors. The North American continent stood completely empty of giants for 30 million years. It seemed as though the age of the Titan was permanently over. Then, the perfect machine arrived and claimed the throne. If a species can vanish from the Earth for 30 million years, only to walk back into the light as an unstoppable, armored Titan, what is currently extinct beneath our feet, simply waiting for the right moment to return?